morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. It's 10 o'clock on the dot, so we're going to go through a few logistics and then get underway. My name is Michael Kotzenware. If you've joined us for webinars in the past, you probably recognize my voice. I host quite a bit, and today I'm joined by Jason Kemp, Senior Underwriter at RLI, specializing in home business. That is our topic, of course, home-based business, and a new product that we're excited about. So before we jump into the content and let Jason take over, just want to say a couple of quick words about housekeeping items. As always, everybody's in listen-only mode. That just means that we want to respect your audio experience, reduce any background noise that may be coming from the attendees and or ours. Most of us are still home-based, unfortunately. So that does not mean you cannot ask questions. However, we always encourage questions, and at any time you can enter those in the chat section of your dashboard or in the actual question section. I will be monitoring that along the way. So if there's something I can answer via chat, I will. Otherwise, I'll direct those at Jason toward the end. We usually do Q&A at the end just so that we, don't address things that will be covered later in the content. So let's get underway with a couple of items on our site here. As you can see on the screen, this is an article on our website dedicated to this product. It's got a register button here. So there are two groups of folks joining us today on the webinar. You probably know which you fall into. The two groups are those that have credentials for the RLI portal and those that do not. If you do have credentials, you see a button on your dashboard. I'll go there now. That allows you to jump into the RLI system right there. And if you do not, there's another place you can register, not just from that article. The services and support menu here, you can simply click on the RLI button, and that takes you to a registration page. So if you do not have credentials, you can register after today. I'm going to go back to the article here via the search bar on our website. Simply type in RLI. That'll bring you to any related content, and first hit there is home business. This has also got some bullet points here on the features of the product, as well as some sample marketing materials down at the bottom that you can download. And certainly we can customize those if your agency is interested in marketing the product. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Jason Kemp, Senior Underwriter at RLI, and we will get underway. Jason, you ready?
Yeah, ready.
All right, I'm going to give you the con.
Okay. I think I got it on now on the PowerPoint.
Yep, good to go.
Perfect, thank you. Thanks, Michael, I appreciate the introduction. Appreciate everybody joining us today. We're excited for this new launch of home business insurance with J.E. Brown, and think it's a beneficial coverage. We're gonna go through a few things today, specifically a little bit about our coverage, what we provide, what our eligibility classifications are, a few of our optional coverages, and we're going to go through that fairly quickly, and I will provide these slides to Michael. We'll get them out to you so you can have this for reference, but I do also want to spend a little more time just showing you quickly how to quote the business in our system. So we have some features available that I think will be nice and useful for you, and we do want to make sure and touch on that. So to start the presentation, we're just going to go through a little bit about our coverage and the types of people we're looking for with RLI Home Business Insurance. So the first slide here, we just talk about who needs a home business insurance policy. It's fairly simple. It's your personal lines customers that you're talking to on a regular basis, that you maybe sell a homeowner's policy to, that also have some sort of business exposure conducted from their home. We feel it's a very important question for agents to be asking their insureds, because we do find that most homeowners policies are generally inadequate when insuring exposures related to a home-based business. And that's where we can step in for a fairly reasonable premium, as we'll show you, to cover that business liability and business personal property exposure. We can insure multiple types of business entities, so we're not just stuck on the small sole proprietor. We can insure LLCs, corporations, partnerships, These folks are usually independent contractors. And just to note, we do throw this out there, this is not appropriate for somebody that works at home as an employee of a company. This program is geared towards somebody that owns their own business conducted from their home. And the last point at the bottom here is we talk about asking that question of your customers about business exposures. We feel like that is something that should be asked often. We see all the time that folks have hobbies that turn into businesses overnight, or you have customers that maybe start a side gig and it turns into a business exposure. So this is very dynamic, it changes all the time, and I think it's an important question to be asking. So eligibility, who qualifies for RLI Home Business coverage? First off, they must fit within one of our 140 eligible business classifications. We'll talk a little bit about more of those here in a second, but we do have over 140 types of businesses we will insure. The applicant must live in the United States, and they must fall within our qualifying annual revenues. Qualifying annual revenues being up to 250,000 gross sales of merchandise, or 500,000 gross revenues from a service-related business. These are just caps, just to kind of limit our exposure to businesses within a certain size. Very rarely do we see these businesses hit these numbers. So it's not very often that we'll decline or disqualify an applicant because of these numbers. It just doesn't happen. The business must be home-based, right? So the principal business location must be the residence of the business owner. That does not mean they cannot operate a mobile business. Mobile businesses are very popular with this program. As long as the business is stationed from the home, they can go off-site to conduct their business operations throughout the coverage territory, which is the entire US. A good example of this is a mobile DJ, right? A DJ goes off-site to perform for maybe a school dance or a wedding. Then they go back home and they go to their next event, maybe the next night or next week. That type of business is perfectly acceptable for this. We can also add secondary locations if they do use a storage unit, or maybe a partner of the business stores property at their residence. We can add those locations also to provide coverage at those secondary locations. So some of our common business classes, right? Over 140 classes, as I mentioned. This is a list of some of our more popular. And we can just kind of walk through these a little bit, but appraisal services. So we do home inspectors and appraisers. They kind of work hand in hand. It's as close as we get to maybe the contractors market. So we don't write contractors, but people that appraise homes, people that do home inspections, perfectly acceptable. A wide range of artists, people that sell art, people that make art, in-home bakeries. So small bakeries out of the residential kitchen may go to farmers markets and sell their goods on a weekly basis. That type of business is acceptable. Bookkeepers, accountants, clothing businesses, people that make and sell clothes, people that are sales reps for clothing companies, a wide range of multi-level marketing folks here. Selling clothing or makeup or personal care products, things like that are all acceptable. Crafts and crafters, so we'd write a lot of different craft businesses, people that make decorative items and sell them at craft fairs, mobile DJs, dessert vendors, insurance agents, people that make and sell jewelry, photographers. Thing to note about the photographers, we can also add on a drone coverage for their photography businesses, which we'll talk a little bit about in a second. In-home teachers and tutors is one of our biggest classes. As I said, residential inspectors, wedding and party planners. So this is a short list of the classes that we write, but wanted to just touch on a few, just kind of show you that the scope that we're in for eligible businesses. But to kind of narrow this down, we talk about the few things that just do not qualify right off the bat. And if you find something that's not within this small list, we most likely have a business class for it. If we don't, we're always willing to talk about things. So as long as it doesn't fall within this, we could probably accommodate. But the things that will not qualify, people that sell alcohol, tobacco, or firearms, people that make or sell any products for children under the age of 4. So infant and toddler exposure is not eligible here. Transportation businesses like Uber, Lyft, or truck drivers are not eligible. We do not provide auto coverage with this policy, so that's probably we're not the right market for those folks. Homemade candles are ineligible. People that provide childcare or daycare are not eligible for this program, as well as any of your construction or trade businesses. So there's a contractors market out there specifically for your in-home plumbers, electricians, things like that, that do fall outside of the RLI Home Business program. For state specific, so we have a rating guide, and I'd like to throw this in here and show you this, and I can show you on the portal in just a second where these are at, but we have a rating guide for each state, which is a very valuable document. It's an 8-page document that really takes everything about the program. All of the business classes are listed, as well as the rating categories, the base rates, the optional coverages. Some of our underwriting guidelines are all listed here. So we do have this available on our portal for all the agents. So I'll show you where to access those, but it's a great document to learn about the program or just to use as a reference point. But I do like to point that out in this presentation. A little bit about the coverage. So it's based on an ISO BOP policy, right? We're a package policy. We provide business liability as well as business personal property coverage as a package. Business liability is both on and off premises, so the liability of the insured wherever they're operating follows them. So it's not just at their home. Like I said, as they're a mobile business, their liability coverage will follow. We have limits of 300,000, 500,000, and $1 million. And those are per occurrence limits with an aggregate of double that. So a 1 million per occurrence is a 2 million aggregate, which is what you'll see most for requirements for shows or events that the insureds are trying to get into. So this policy does accommodate the majority of those. That liability coverage will provide coverage for bodily injury, property damage, and personal and advertising injury. We do also offer or include business personal property coverage up to $100,000 that is on and while temporarily off premises. So when they take their business personal property off premises, it is covered in transit, and as long as they do not store their property off-site, which is the home, away from the home for more than 90 days a year. So as the mobile businesses move around and take their stuff somewhere and take it home, their property is covered that entire time. There's a $250 property deductible and a $250 property damage liability deductible. $5,000 of MedPay coverage is included. We include electronic data protection coverage in most states. It's optional in California and Florida. And we have optional coverages available, including money and securities. We can add additional insureds for the events that they attend. We have a garage keepers coverage, unmanned aircraft coverage, and identity fraud expense coverage. So I did want to touch in this briefly about our optional coverages, and really a couple of them that distinguish ourselves in the marketplace. We offer some optional coverages that I think some of our competitors do not. And these are coverages that we've designed over time to cover different types of businesses outside of what the base policy would cover. The first one is unmanned aircraft. This is a popular coverage for us. It goes along with a lot of our photographers. But what it is, it's drone coverage. It's liability and property coverage for the use of an unmanned aircraft in your business. The first part of this that we always have to kind of talk about is this is not a standalone drone policy. This is an optional coverage to add to an already eligible RLI in-home business policy. So as long as they're eligible for in-home business in our classes and they're home-based, we can add this optional coverage onto their policy. And then just some highlights on that. This is obviously in response to the dynamic growth of commercial drone usage in small businesses. The most common business classes that we see using this coverage would be real estate photography, wedding and family photography, home inspectors, and businesses who provide drone services such as unmanned aerial photography. Real estate agents we're starting to see now, they're taking pictures of homes. That's been fairly common recently. So it is a valuable coverage for these folks, as the base policy, the ISO BOP policy, excludes liability and property coverage for the use of an aircraft, including unmanned aircraft. So If they do have that exposure and they don't have this coverage added, there would be no coverage for those operations. The actual drone is covered on a property basis as a business personal property on a specified perils basis. This policy is not intended to cover your property if you crash it or if you lose it. But fire, wind, theft, things of that nature would be covered for the loss of the drone. Liability limits follow the liability limits selected on the base policy. And you can see on the rating chart on the side, this is additional premium outside of the base premium, but just an idea of the options that you have and where the rates fall. But the 500 circled there is someone that has $1 million of liability coverage, which is common. They want all three of the liability coverages for the drone, and they operate a light drone, and that's the additional premium. So wanted to point that out. I also mentioned earlier about optional coverages about additional insureds. This is very important for this program. A lot of our customers are getting this coverage because they need to attend an event or a location that is requiring them to have insurance. A craft fair, farmer's market, a hotel for a photo shoot, all kinds of different things we see. We can accommodate those as additional insured, which is usually required under many different forms available, but the most common here is the manager, lessor of premises. But we can accommodate all of that for the requirements of these shows. We also have a garage keepers coverage that is available, and this is one that I think is also very beneficial to some of our folks who may take possession of their customer's vehicle. So the garage keepers coverage will provide optional coverage to insureds who temporarily take possession of not more than 4 customers' autos in the normal conduct of their business. So we have a few business classes. We don't write mechanics, but we do have a few business classes that take possession of their customer's vehicle. We'll talk about those in a second. Same thing kind of with the drone coverage. The BOP policy excludes auto coverage for liability and property. So without the garage keepers coverage, there probably isn't coverage for damage to the vehicle that's in your care. This policy is not a liability coverage. Sorry, the garage keepers coverage is not a liability coverage. It is providing you coverage for the property of your customer's vehicle in your control. So let's say you have a customer's vehicle and you're doing a windshield repair and you back that vehicle into a dumpster. The coverage for the vehicle would be covered under garage keepers. The liability exposure to the dumpster would not. We have options for coverage for garage keepers of $30,000 or $60,000 limits, and then 3 different coverage options based on what they would like covered. A few things about the garage keepers coverage: there is a $250 per auto deductible on comprehensive losses, $1,000 maximum deductible for any one event. Collision losses are subject to a $250 per auto deductible. And then these are the most common business classes that you would see select the garage keepers coverage, as they would be taking possession of their customer's vehicle. That would be windshield repair businesses, so folks that repair chips and cracks in windshields. Car detailers, people that detail the inside and outside of cars, very common class for us. People that repair upholstery or vinyl and leather, so the interior repair of a car. And then vinyl lettering, folks that put graphics and letters on vehicles for businesses. One thing to note about the garage keepers coverage is that is location specific. So at least one location must be scheduled in order to obtain coverage. The garage location is probably not a business personal property location, but it's the location where they go to perform their operations. If this is strictly a mobile business, they can list their home as their garage keepers location, and the garage keepers coverage will follow them as long as they do not perform garage keepers operations at a location for more than 30 days in a 12-month period. So what this is really saying is, if you have a customer who is an auto detailer that goes to people's homes to detail their cars, perfectly acceptable. They're never at one of these people's homes for more than 30 days in a 12-month period. You just list the home, the insured's residence, as the garage keeper's location, and this coverage will follow them. The last few slides I have here, I'm going to do more of a live demo on these, but I did want you to have them for later if you need to reference. But this just shows you a view of the RLI Home Business portal, which I'm going to go through in a second. Some information about new business and renewals. We'll talk about that in a second also, but did want to provide this here for you. And then a slide here on the home business contact information at RLI. So if you have questions about eligibility or if you have questions about how our system works, I did want to provide this information here for you to contact us if you do have those specific questions. So now I'm going to try and jump over here to more of a live demo. And I'm hoping this works okay for the view. Okay, so this is the home business portal page. So the folks that already have access to RLI have access to the RLI portal. When you log in, you probably will see an extra tile there that says home business insurance. By clicking on that tile, it will take you into this screen right here. This is the home business portal page. So most likely you'll see personal umbrella as well as home business, but for it's the same login for both, gets you to our portal. You have the option to choose your product. This takes you right into the home business page. I wanted to briefly kind of show you the tools that are available to you here. And then from there, we're going to jump into a quote. And I just want to show you how quick and easy it is to quote and submit these risks for binding. So on the home business portal page, there is some buttons at the top that are action buttons, right? They're some of our more popular things that you will need. RLink 360 being the system that you quote and submit new business in. Easy Pay is a link that the insureds can use to pay for their renewals. A dynamic tool for eligible classes. So by clicking on this, it will take you to a tool that will allow you to go through, select classes, and see lists of all the classes we have available. So if you're wondering the types of businesses that we do right, you can go through here and click on these categories and see all the types of businesses underneath them. So automotive services, if we click on that, you will see a listing of all the types of auto businesses. A description of the classes is available here also. You can get loss runs for current customers if you need to. You can report a claim, or RLI inquiry is a lookup function also. Not as important. RLink 360 is where we're going to spend most of our time today. If we go down below, you will see some titles here to be able to look up resources. It's resources for you. The first one being that contact information that I shared in the presentation is also here. Myself, Kobe, who's another underwriter on the program, and then general business requests can be sent to our group email or our group phone number dedicated to anybody that has questions about home business insurance. Going through the titles here, we have forms. So every form that might attach to these policies is available in a specimen copy just for reference. I did want to point that out if you'd like to look through some of those. We have resources, which resources are reference manuals. So some paper copies of all of our eligible business classes, guidelines for selecting classes, the processes, renewal processes, all of that is available here. Certificate blanks, if you need to fill out a certificate, blank applications, just a lot of information. But the important one is the rating guides that I talked about earlier are right here. By selecting that, we have one for each state. So you can go into that rating guide, print it, view it, whatever you need to do. But those are very important documents that I'd encourage everybody to take a look at. So that's the portal page. I do want to jump into RLink 360 here and give you a quick demo of that, and then we'll have some time for some questions. And I could show you anything else that anybody would like to see after we do this demo. But to get into the RLink 360 system, you click the button, takes us right in. And this is what we would call the desktop. So the desktop is where it's going to house all of your information. This is specific to agents. So once you're set up and you log into the portal, it automatically attaches your agency code to these. So no need to do anything further. And then this will house the information specific to your agency. There's a few buttons here: in progress applications. Those are things that you're working on. You save it. You can go back into it at any time if you want to submit later. Open submissions. Those are the things that you've sent, that you've submitted. And policies are policies that are bound. That's hard to show until we have a lot of stuff in here. So I can always help with that at a later date. But the most important part here is, how do you quote this new business, or how do you get your customers prices to see if they're willing to go that route. The top of the page, it says new application. Drop down home business insurance, and you have a couple of options. You have a quick quote option or a full quote option. Quick quote is if you have a customer on the phone or in your office and they're just like, I wonder what it would cost to insure my home-based business. You say, let me find out. We can find out real quickly. This is not generating any underwriting information. This is really just grabbing the rating materials needed to rate the new business. So from here, I'm just going to walk you through this. I'm going to go through it and I'm going to fill it out and just show you how easy this is. But the start items just need information filled out. So I'm just going to throw my name in here. We're going to choose an effective date. We're going to choose a state and a zip. We need to select a business personal property limit. So that's what I mentioned before, $100,000 up, or $100,000 maximum, $5,000 minimum. So we can add 10,000. Business liability, we have three options: 300,000, 500,000, or 1 million. We'll stick with 1 million. And then we're going to add a business class. So business class, what we rate on this would be the class of business that they would fall under. We will say photographer. This is the list of all of our business classes. And you'll see that listed there. If they would like to add any optional coverages at this point, they can do that for the rating. We'll leave it as is. If they had additional locations, we would rate on that. Additional insureds, waiver of subrogation, any of that can be added here to get the price, but we're just going to keep this fairly simple. We're going to hit the rate button at the bottom. It says rating was successful. Hit OK. And now we see a rate at the bottom here. So for a photographer in California in that zip code, with $10,000 of property, we're looking at $631. That's fairly expensive for the program. I think our average premiums range in the $300 range, but this obviously I added extra property to it. It's in a fairly highly rated area. But at this point, we have some options. As an agent, you can obviously present the price to your insured. You can view quote, which is going to give you an RLI quote letter that breaks this down that you can hand out to anybody, but it does give you some dates. It gives you a breakdown of the rating, and this is a document that you can use to present to your insured. At that point, you can save this by hitting save at the bottom, and it would save this file in your in progress applications tab back on the desktop. Or if the insured's like, yeah, let's do it, you can hit next to generate all the information needed to generate a full application and submit this on for binding. So we'll just show you how to do that quickly. It does carry over some of the information you put into the quick quote. Sub-producer will be auto-filled with your information, but I'm not in as an agent, so it gives me the list of them all, but we'll leave that blank for now. And then it starts to ask me more detailed questions about the business. So first one being insured type. We'll say it's an individual. Once I do that, I hit add applicant information, and I just type in the information required. I hit apply, and you can see the insured name there. If I had a business name to add to my individual business entity, I can do that by clicking this button here. And then address. So address would be the primary address of the business. The primary address of the business in a home-based business policy would be the insured's primary residence. So I'll just enter that information. If there was a separate mailing address, so let's say they had a PO box or a UPS store, some of these home businesses don't like to send their mail to their home address. You can list that here by clicking this button and adding that mailing address information. When we get down to billing, you select direct bill and we enter an email address. How the billing works on this, when you select direct bill, once this is approved and submitted through to RLI, and RLI approves it and binds it, it will send a payment link directly to this email address. So if it's the insured or the agent, we're not overly concerned with who we send the payment link to. We just want to send it to who's going to pay for the policy. And then the policy sits there in a status of quoted until they pay for it. When they pay for it, the binding process completes. So there's no reason or no need to collect any money up front. We can send these links directly to the insured and they can pay online using the link. Once the first page is done, we hit next. And then we answer our underwriting questions. So we won't go through all of these. I'm just going to quickly scroll through them and answer them no. But these are questions that need to be asked of the insured. We do ask about annual revenues just to make sure they fit within those qualifying annual revenues. Once those are complete, we hit next again. And it takes us to our locations and limits. So locations and limits gives you the option to change any of the optional coverage options that you maybe selected or did not select on the quick quote. You can change anything on the quick quote. Obviously, anything that would change the premium, we'll update the premium when we rate this again. But if we don't make any changes from the quick quote, obviously that rate will stay the same. There's a flood and optional flood coverage that'll default if it's eligible. It's very reasonably priced, but just to keep the rate the same, I'm going to keep it as no. I hit next. It takes me to our business class page. So this is where we just need a quick detailed description of the business, as well as make sure our business class is here. Now, one thing to note about the RLI in-home business program is that we can write multiple businesses on one policy. So as long we actually cover all business operations that are conducted under the entity that we're insuring. So for this, Jason Kemp as an individual, if I was a photographer as well as a in-home bakery, I would want to list all of that on there. As long as everything's eligible, you can list multiple business classes and multiple types of businesses. So that is one thing to note. This is not strictly for just one operation of an entity. It does cover everything. If I wanted to add another business class, I would simply get the drop down there. But quickly while we're here, since I am a photographer and I think the drone coverage is very relevant, at this point, if I wanted to add the drone coverage to this policy, I have to add the business class for unmanned aircraft operations. By doing that, it's going to populate some information necessary to complete adding that optional coverage. So it does ask me some questions about the coverage I want. It asks me some questions about the business personal property limit. And then it asks me a few questions about the drone itself. So the make of it, which I don't know that information, so we'll just type in test here. As well as the operator information. So now I have successfully added the unmanned aircraft operations as one of the operations and the information necessary for the drone. I did just want to give you that quick demo. That's not going to be on all your policies, obviously you're quoting, but that's how quick it is just to add that information in. Let's say as a photographer, I need to go to a hotel and they want to be listed as additional insured. That's the main reason I'm getting this policy. I hit the add additional insured button here on the right. It brings up a window just to fill in that information. So type of additional insured, address, name of additional insured. Apply. Now you'll see an additional insured added. I hit the next button one more time and it takes me back to another rating screen. So this rating screen is going to be updated with the things I've added, like the unmanned aircraft coverage as well as the one additional insured. So this premium is going to seem higher than most that you see, but I just wanted to give you the demonstration of the unmanned aircraft. But as you can see, it has added has added the $20 for the additional insured, and it also has added the $500 for the unmanned aircraft onto here. From there, we have a couple of options. We can hit save again, and it saves all of the information that we've input. We can go back into it at a later date. So you don't have to complete this now. You can save it and go back in. You can hit view quote again, which will pull up that quote letter that we provided before, but it will be updated with the new things. You can hit view application, which is, I'll show you that. It will give you a PDF application completed as you filled out in the system. So this program really does not require you to get any written applications. You can either do it in the system like this and get it signed, or I'll show you at the end here the option to do it electronically. But let's say we're ready to submit this over for review and binding. We hit the next button to go to the summary. From the summary, you get a listing of all of the things you've entered, so it's a great chance to just kind of check your work and go through it. All my business classes are there. Everything's spelled correctly. And I get to the bottom and there's a question about the application. From here, if you had a signed app and you wanted to send that over, you could, but the best way to go about this is to do it electronically. So there's an electronic signature button. You click that. It prompts you to enter information about the applicant on where we want to send this application for them to sign. Once we do that and we hit the submit button, it's going to automatically send an electronic application, just like I just showed you, but an electronic version directly to the applicant. They go on the DocuSign link and sign the document. It's very simple. We get notified when it's signed, and then the application is automatically saved to the submission. So the best way to go about these submissions to where you don't have to collect anything up front or wait on anything is obviously direct bill we're going to use, where we're going to send links for payment so you don't have to collect that. And then we're going to try and use electronic signature to where we're going to send them the paper or the electronic app and not have to worry about getting a paper app signed and go that route. So once all this is done and we send it, it gets to RLI. We do a quick glance to make sure everything looks complete. And then we wait, right? We wait to make sure it's signed, which we'll get notified. And then once it's automatically signed, it will send them a payment link for payment. Those are the two steps that the insured must complete to finish the binding process. Once it's bound, policy documents are immediately available in this system for you to grab. And we will also mail documents directly to the insured the next day after the policy binds. Okay, so that's the information I wanted to show you guys today. I know it was a lot of stuff, but the most important thing is to note that we're here at RLI to help navigate you through this system. We understand folks using new systems. If you have questions, please reach out to myself or Kobe at RLI and let us know what your questions are, and we can help. But I think as you move through this, you'll start to see it is very simple and the process is good. But Michael, that's what I have today. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you very much, Jason. I think that was a thorough and rather quick demonstration. So we do have some questions. We'll dive right in here.
Cool.
One, maybe a latecomer here asking, does the program offer any product? Oh, you know what? I misread it. I apologize. So does the program offer any product liability?
Yeah. We do offer product. So products and completed operations is included within the liability limits. There are certain products that people may make that could be harmful, such as we do soap makers, or we do people that make wood furniture. Some of those attach a selected products liability exclusion that would limit the product liability based on their annual revenues. But like I said, that's only a couple classes. But most classes, the product liability is absolutely included.
Yeah, it's a great question. So it's part of the GL coverage standard, of course, and then you're saying for a couple of classes you have a carve out where you limit it, right?
Exactly right. Yeah. So like, let's say their annual
Okay.
revenues, if they make soaps, were over $10,000 a year. I know that's low, but we're looking for the small craft type business. Then
Right.
product liability could be excluded just based on the state and the class. But the system will tell you those things with the business class description.
Got it. Okay. Next question is, I want to sort of reframe this because it's a good one. He's asking about businesses that have kind of moved into the home as a result of, the pandemic and so forth. So I'll just reframe this a little bit differently. So with that in mind, there are some businesses that perhaps exceeded the revenue limit and have now become in-home. Is there any talk about, say an insurance agency, for instance, right? Now they've become accustomed to operating at home. Perhaps they exceed the revenue limits, but they don't have any foot traffic, or if so, very little. Is there any talk about adjusting those to accommodate businesses like that?
Yeah, I think this question has come up recently. Absolutely. I think we can look at them on a case by case basis at the moment, just to see what the core. I mean, like an insurance agent, to me, I don't think there would be a problem. What we're trying to avoid in this time, and it is a different time, we're trying to avoid writing temporary policies for people that are at home for a month or so. It is a year-long policy. There is a minimum earned premium. It's really geared for a home-based business, a permanent home-based business, not someone that moved their business at home for a very short amount of time. So I did want to throw that in there because we have had that question come up also. But for the annual revenues, I think yes. I mean, we can take a look at that. If you do see some of these come in where they have moved all to home-based operations, I'd be happy to look at them.
Okay, great. So there is some flexibility. All right. So one other question: can we delete one of the businesses at any time? I'm guessing that's where you added the multiple class codes, and perhaps
Exactly.
they cease doing one type. How do you address that?
So in the submission, before you submit this, you can change any of this stuff and re-rate it at any time. So if you rated it on a class and you realize that was the wrong class, it can be changed. So that's not a problem. It would be done on that. I can see if you still see my screen.
Yeah. What about midterm though? Say where they wrote it with 2 and then they no longer do, the baking.
So it does depend. We do provide past operations coverage. So sometimes like a midterm, we would say, let's adjust all of this at renewal. Let's let this policy cover the business operations that we did start covering at the beginning of the policy, and then let it at renewal, we can make all the adjustments to change it. So maybe not a midterm change we usually make, but something that definitely can be adjusted on the next renewal.
Got it. Okay. And one other question regarding E&O. Is there an E&O component for any or all classes?
There's not. So this policy does not provide professional or E&O type coverage. The only class that it is offered is for barbers and beauticians. So there is a professional endorsement added onto those classes for the hair care. But outside of that, this is not a professional liability market.
Got it. So that's particularly relevant because for barbers, the BI and PD that results from their professional services, if that's excluded, that's a big deal, right? So that's kind of carving back in.
Yeah, it wouldn't be worth writing it, right, if they didn't have that coverage.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And then last question here: what if a customer's one of the business may not be able? Sorry. Lakshmi, maybe you can rephrase that question. I'm not following the one about may not be eligible. Then how does it go? If it doesn't get addressed right now, we'll certainly circle back. Folks, I don't see any other questions here, so I want to thank Jason again for taking us through this demonstration. Most of you probably know how to get to the RLI portal. If you don't, certainly reach out to our home office at 800-955-8213. We're here to help. we'd be delighted to get you set up and writing home business ASAP. For those of you that already have access, get in there and start a quote. See what you think. Let us know. Give us some feedback. We appreciate it. I'm sure RLI appreciates it. And I want to thank all of you for your attention today. We're running a little bit long, but I think it was a really good discussion, some good questions from everybody, and certainly appreciate Jason's time. Thank you very much, everybody.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, guys. We'll see you next time.